Will President Donald Trump elect BlackRock CEO Larry Fink as the Treasury Secretary? And why is Donald Trump all of a sudden attacking El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele? I'm going to get into all of this and more with my buddy Luke. But let's dive in right off the bat here, Luke, on Donald Trump's relationship with his money manager, Larry Fink. It goes into a big historic path of what Donald Trump and Larry Fink, their relationship, it is kind of odd. They have had a lot of differences as to, what are their viewpoints on different money and how everything has been turning. But it's been kind of a floating rumor out here that Larry Fink has Trump's ear when it comes to all economic policies. And maybe a reason why Donald Trump has recently taken a turn and been very pro Bitcoin as well. Obviously, we had the BlackRock ETFs get launched earlier this year. Larry Fink has done a complete 180 and is now seemingly one of the bigger Bitcoin bulls in the money manager space. So, Luke, what do you think of this developing story we've got here of Larry Fink and President Donald Trump potentially linking up as a Bitcoin superpower here?
Well, I mean, it's massive. And like Larry Fink could potentially be one of the biggest Bitcoin bulls in the world, not just finance. He's actually completely flipped his turn. I think BlackRock's Bitcoin backflip's the biggest Bitcoin backflip I've ever seen. Michael Saylor in 2013 said Bitcoin's going to go the way of the internet. And 2020, 7 years later, he began smash buying Bitcoin and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. But I think Larry Fink's Bitcoin transformation is even bigger. He's gone to the complete other opposite side of the aisle. He's now going on mainstream media and defending Bitcoin. When they ask him about crypto, Ethereum, he says, no, Bitcoin. He actually says Bitcoin's a risk-off asset. Bitcoin's digitizing gold. Bitcoin is a legitimate institutional asset class. He is absolutely going on a rampage, okay? So him potentially getting in the ear of Donald Trump's very interesting, because if you now have the CEO of the world's largest asset manager, the Secretary of the Treasury for America, this is essential if the rumors are true. So the rumors circulating all this week is that Donald Trump is going to make Bitcoin a strategic reserve asset of America, meaning that they're going to put Bitcoin in the treasury of America. Now, if you're going to do that, again, hypothetically, these are just rumors right now. Trump hasn't spoken at Nashville. But if you are going to buy Bitcoin in the treasury for the US, you need a treasurer, so the Secretary of the Treasury, to be pro-Bitcoin, okay? Right now, Janet Yellen is in that position, but it would make a lot of sense for Donald Trump to elect someone like Larry Fink, who has completely welcomed Bitcoin with open arms in the past couple of years. What do you think, Brandon?
100%. And right, I mean, you mentioned it and alluded to it already. I'm in Nashville right now. That's for the Bitcoin conference. President Trump is going to speak at it here on Saturday. So, I mean, there's rumors been floating around for a long time about him potentially coming to speak. Now those rumors are coming to true. And there's rumors floating around that he might make Bitcoin a strategic reserve for the US. But, there's been this rumor floating around too, right? But we should get into why he's going to most likely pick Larry Fink if he's going to pick anybody, outside in the traditional financial world, opposed to maybe somebody like Jamie Dimon, because Jamie Dimon, has been very anti-Bitcoin up until lately. He kind of flipped his script there. And so that's why I think, with Trump also picking J.D. Vance, a vice presidential candidate that is also very pro-Bitcoin, very pro-crypto, that whole realm, it seems like it's all kind of lining up here. And it's interesting because, obviously he's going to need a pro-Bitcoin Treasury Secretary if that is something that he wants to do here, right? So, I think that everything that he said here, and you've also lined it out here, right, about how Steve Mnuchin, who used to work with Donald Trump, who used to be the U.S. Treasury Secretary under Donald Trump, also did a huge 180 and even flipped the script a little bit on Donald Trump on how he was viewing Bitcoin, where at first he was warning in this article here in 2018 about how Bitcoin is becoming the next Swiss bank account and how that, he does not want that. Then he did a complete U-turn here in 2021 saying that he wants it to become digital gold. And all of this all led up to President Trump almost banning Bitcoin in 2020 when the whole craziness was going on, right? When we saw Bitcoin crash to 4K and then start shooting up like crazy. President Trump almost banned it at that time too, until Steve Mnuchin, it was in his ear. So I think, when it comes down to all of this, President Trump is surrounding himself with people who are pro-Bitcoin and pro all of this new innovation that is going on in the digital payments and digital realm. And that's where I think is extremely important to be stressed here, is that is where we're going. We're going there. Trump has already said he wants to have the US be a leader in Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin innovation, and all that kind of stuff. So he's surrounding himself with people who also think that way. So, Luke, I think you also got a little bit of a clip here of, Larry Fink, right? How bullish he's been, right?
We do have a clip of Larry Fink. I want to first kind of maybe open up the can of worms regarding El Salvador, but maybe we're going to do that in a minute, okay? But I think it does make a lot of sense for Trump to elect that pro-Bitcoin candidate for the Treasury. I think that makes all of the sense in the world. JD Vance being elected, Donald Trump, going for Vance and, Fink. I think this is massive and it does make a lot of sense. And at the end of the video, we are going to actually be looking at the flip side of the coin, so to say, and maybe looking at, why these people could potentially not be everything that Trump wants, okay? We're going to get there in a second, but I think we're going to start with this video right here about Larry Fink and his most recent appearance on mainstream media. Because just imagine, if you have a man in the Treasury who has views like this, I don't think there is any way in the world that this could be bearish for Bitcoin. This is incredibly bullish. So we're going to play this little clip for you guys.
I studied.
Now, I know you have been a leader in willing to embrace crypto. You have made it so that people can be in Bitcoin. We hear that you are thinking about Ethereum. These are incredible things. Now, BlackRock is not known as a gunslinger by any means. So you obviously must believe that this maybe is an alternative. Is this an alternative in order to be able, because of a deficit, maybe something long-term people should have?
Absolutely. As you know, I was a skeptic.
Yes.
I was a proud skeptic. And I studied it, learned about it, and I came away saying, okay, my opinion 5 years ago was wrong. Here's my opinion today. This is what I believe in today. I believe the opportunity today. I believe Bitcoin is legitimate. I'm not trying to say there's not misuses like everything else, but it is a legitimate financial instrument that allows you to have maybe uncorrelated, non-correlated type of returns. I believe it is an instrument that you invest in when you're more frightened, though. It is an instrument when you believe that countries are debasing their currency, debasing their currency by excess deficits, and some countries are. I believe we have countries where you're frightened of your everyday existence, and if you have an opportunity to invest in something that is outside your country's control, then you can have more financial control. And so I'm a major believer that there is a role for Bitcoin in portfolios. I believe you're going to see that as one of the asset classes that we all look at. I look at it as digital gold, as I said before, and I do believe there's a real need for everyone to look at it as one alternative to, I would say, the optimism that I have in the world. If you want to hedge hope, Bitcoin is not an instrument for hope unless you're hopeful you're going to make a lot of money on it. But I look at it as a vehicle in which you're expressing your financial acumen in something that you're more frightened of the world, you're more frightened of your existence. And I believe there's a great industrial use for it. And
so before we get into Fink talking about the industrial use of Bitcoin, do you think he was nearly about to say that Bitcoin is hope, like Michael Saylor says, and then he kind of caught himself and he said, hang on a minute, let's rein it in a little bit here, Big Larry. We've said too many positive things about Bitcoin on mainstream media. Did you catch that? Did you notice that was a little bit strange at the end of that interview?
I did catch that. I thought it was pretty funny, to be honest, how he kind of caught himself there because, like you said, there he was like Bitcoin is not hope, right? He tried to flip it in that direction, but we know, like, the traditional financial system just kind of, in a sense, just pulls that gap wider. It makes the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, especially in times of crisis. And Bitcoin is that true beacon of hope that can help, bring everything back to a hard money standard and fix the money, fix the world. So I think it is pretty interesting that Larry Fink, although he's a Bitcoin bull, he's still in the traditional finance and the traditional world in a sense, where he's thinking about making his fiat dollars and that stack grow, opposed to maybe making his Bitcoin stack grow. So he's there. He's a Bitcoiner, but I don't think he's quite out of the fiat world just yet. And so I think that's why, as a potential U.S. Treasury Secretary, he's going to help bridge that gap and maybe, who knows, even help Trump back the dollar with Bitcoin or move in that way. So, but in a sense, that would still keep the U.S. government in control of the overall money supply and everything like that, which I don't think they want to lose, which is why I think it's interesting, kind of the flip that, we've seen Trump do on Bukele too. I mean, like we alluded to it at the beginning, like, why is President Trump now kind of going at Bukele? Maybe it's because they've made Bitcoin legal tender. Maybe it's because of all the positive things. I'd love to hear what you kind of think about all that, Luke.
Yeah, well, you said it. Larry Fink's out of the fiat system. Larry Fink is in the fiat system. He's still stuck inside that fiat worldview where his lens is fiat, okay? Still, he's not quite fully, embraced Bitcoin yet. Someone who's out of that worldview is Bukele, okay? He is a hardcore Bitcoiner. He is the Bitcoin president of the world. And it's really interesting that Donald Trump is actually calling out Bukele, not just once this week by name, but twice. In 2 consecutive days in a row, Donald Trump actually called out Bukele. So we have some videos that we want to play for you guys. And I think it's very interesting. We're going to explore the rabbit holes, the conspiracy theories, and why Donald Trump is saying negative things about El Salvador. But let's first listen to these 2 interviews.
You got to push the sound. I think the sound is muted.
Okay, so maybe we don't have audio for this video. Let's try our hand at the second video and see whether we have the audio for that one. We are having some audio issues, so I apologize about that. It's my dodgy computer. Let's try the second clip.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like we're having audio issues with this one as well. So we're not hearing them, but it is interesting, like you said there, Luke, that we've had Donald Trump come up on stage 2 days in a row and bring up Nayib Bukele. What have been his points? From what I've heard, it's basically, that El Salvador is doing a great job of eliminating violence, getting everything out of order there. But what El Salvador is doing, or what Trump's point is that they're sending all their bad people to the U.S. At least that's his theory. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it's interesting that Trump is kind of taking that stance opposed to maybe even backing Bukele, because he's one of the more popular presidents in any country at this point in time. I mean, he won by an absolute landslide in the re-election for El Salvador. So it's interesting that he's taking this approach and calling out El Salvador. I mean, before, without Bitcoin becoming legal tender, when's the last time we've heard a presidential candidate calling out the president of El Salvador? I don't think that's really happened too much before here, Luke. So why do you think that he's doing that? Why do you think that do you really think he believes that the El Salvador is sending all their bad and violent criminals to the U.S., or do you think there's a deeper rooted issue here?
Well, it's interesting because, like you said, in the interview of Trump yesterday, he directly called out El Salvador by name. And he said they are just dumping the criminals in America. That's why El Salvador's crime is going down. They're just sending them all to America. But that's obviously not true. We've all seen the videos of, El Salvador, and these brand new prisons they've built there are completely filled with criminals. 68,000 criminals have been locked up and put in these, maximum security facilities that have just been built in El Salvador over the past few years to accommodate this war on the criminals that is happening in the country. So again, I don't think it's entirely true that El Salvador is dumping all of these criminals on American soil. I mean, you can tell pretty clearly that, this is not the case. We were even going to try and play you guys a little video showing you these, jail cells in El Salvador completely overwhelmed, but I don't think we have to play it. We're having the audio, technicalities and the problems. You guys have all seen the videos. The jails in El Salvador are completely overrun. So that's just not correct, right, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And it's interesting too, right? He's coming to the Bitcoin conference, which, Bitcoiners love President Bukele. And one major outspoken Bitcoiner of President Bukele is Max Keiser, who comes on to stage right before Donald Trump and during all this. So, I mean, check this tweet here. A guy on the left, most popular leader in the world, guy on the right, cheats at golf. I mean, Max Keiser's coming at Donald Trump, and he's going on stage, I think like maybe even an hour right before Trump is supposed to come on to speak. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. He's on the Nakamoto stage right before. And, Max Keiser, the ball of energy that he is, he's going to be bringing the heat when it comes to discussing everything when it comes to Bukele and really going against Trump, because I think Max Keiser works with Bukele on a daily basis at this point. So he's a big Bukele guy. A lot of people in the Bitcoin space, obviously El Salvador, a couple years ago at this very conference announced that they're taking Bitcoin as legal tender. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting kind of reception here. I wonder if a lot of Bitcoiners are going to be maybe a little turned off by Trump potentially, attacking the first Bitcoin president in Bukele. So how do you think this is going to all play out here in Nashville here, Luke?
Honestly, when it comes to Donald Trump and Max Keiser, I'm not making any predictions because I have no clue what's going to happen. But in that tweet we brought up a second ago, Keiser directly said, you guys should expect a high energy, highly spirited response to Donald Trump's attack on Bukele. So again, I think that, this is going to be big. He says Trump's recent slanderous comments regarding President Bukele. So Max has been tweeting about this a lot. A lot of people are really nervous to see what Max does on stage because Max is a showman and he is full of energy. I love that about Max. Super full of energy. He's certainly not one to shy away from controversy. So I think all I'm going to say is I'm going to make sure I'm watching those two talks back to back. At this point, it's just speculation. Who knows what Max is going to say? But I think Joseph in the chat makes a really great point. Trump is misinformed on Bukele. I could not agree more, Joseph. I just don't think he knows what's going on. We can see from the stats very clearly here, Brandon. El Salvador is safer than America in 2023. Maybe Trump's jealous. Maybe Trump's just jealous that El Salvador has exposed that it's actually possible to clean up your country, okay? Again, Trump had 4 years to do it between 2016 and 2020, and he didn't. He didn't drain the swamp. He didn't clean up the country. He didn't implement a Bitcoin standard. He didn't do any of these things that Bukele's doing. He didn't abolish the globalist push of the 2020, we'll just call it hysteria. Trump wanted Operation Warp Speed, full speed ahead. That's what Trump wanted. So it could be it. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting here. You sent me this tweet as well about all of, the potential people that will be working with Trump. So I'm curious to see if you think this is a positive or a negative, because, it's really the dichotomy here between big business and actually, the government of the United States. Like, which is actually stronger here at this point? If we get BlackRock CEO Larry Fink to lead the Treasury, we get Jamie Dimon to come in and lead the Fed, and then Peter Thiel, he handpicked JD Vance as his running mate. So would this make the government more swampy than it already is, because you're getting all these big money managers essentially pulling strings behind the scenes? I don't know. I think that Trump would be good for business here in the US, but making it full capitalist and going down that rabbit hole, I'm not necessarily sold that Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon and all these guys are necessarily in it for the right reasons. What do you think there, Luke?
Yeah, so we always like to provide you guys with both sides of the story. Yes, Donald Trump being president of America right now looks to be super bullish for Bitcoin. All right. And, you know, again, politicians always flip flop and they change their words. But right now, who would you prefer to be president in America? Biden or Trump? Or Kamala Harris and Trump? Kamala Harris, who literally introduces herself in live interviews by saying, "My name is Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm wearing a green suit." That's how she introduces herself in interviews. It's madness, absolute madness. So, I mean, who would you rather want? Obviously, I would say I'd rather want Trump. But again, I always like to just bring up the other side of the story and say, look, no political leader is ever going to be the perfect solution. Okay. You know, unless he implements, you know, a full-blown Bitcoin standard tomorrow, he's not doing as much as he could for America. Okay. Because all of these politicians are promising the fact that they can fix all of the problems with the country, but they never address the root cause of all of these problems. Okay. It has nothing to do with politics, has all to do with economics. The money is broken. That's why I think clown world is accelerating so badly. So again, it'll be watch this space. But again, I can certainly make a negative or a, let's say, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory argument and represent that side of the argument and say, why is he electing the swamp? Larry Fink, who has historically, before this Bitcoin ETF, been very hostile to freedom and people who wanted to use energy. Okay, his whole ESG push. And, you know, he's very close with the World Economic Forum. He's actually on the board of directors of the World Economic Forum, big Larry Fink. And then obviously Jamie Dimon, we don't even need to go there. But again, I think it's important to just kind of talk about both sides of the story of Trump being president.
100%, right? And I mean, you know, like to RK in the chat's point, you know, it is a tough job fighting the swamp on his first term. You know, he got knocked out the second term, and then hopefully he'll be back. Everything is kind of trending towards that direction, it seems, here in the next one. So, you know, he'll have 4 years to prove it and kind of see. But yeah, I mean, I think him, you know, kind of going at Bukele just leaves a little sour taste in my mouth. And I'm sure it does for a lot of Bitcoiners. But, you know, I think it is a step forward to Bitcoin, you know, becoming potentially the next Treasury Reserve. It seems like all signs are pointing to that. But, you know, I think the true power of Bitcoin, which we've been kind of harping on in a lot of these past live streams, is, you know, the ability to self-custody and just hold it yourself, right? I mean, we had the opportunity to beat Larry Fink when it comes to Bitcoin. We had the opportunity to beat the US to hold Bitcoin yourself and become self-sovereign. And I think the best way to do that is by utilizing a foundation device. You can use promo code Green Candle to pull your Bitcoin off an exchange and eliminate any counterparty or any other type of risk, as well as nailing your seed phrase into a titanium punch plate. You can see it in this video that you can light it on fire and you can still read it. You're not safe holding your entire life savings and net worth on a piece of paper. Luke says it all the time. So you can use promo code Green Candle to save your Bitcoin and store it on a stamp seed punch plate by utilizing a foundation device. The combination there is almost foolproof. And if you're looking for a good way to orange pill your friends and family and talk about a lot of the topics that we are talking about in these live streams, I recommend the Bitcoin trading cards. You can go to their website, btc-tc.com, and get some great trading cards and use promo code Green Candle there to get 10% off as well. So with all that being said, get your Bitcoin off an exchange. You can beat Larry Fink. You can beat the U.S. Treasury and much, much more. So, Luke, what do you got for us, man?
Yeah, I think that's a great, you know, point to really hammer home. We've had the chance to front run Wall Street. Bitcoin's really the first asset in history where the little guy has front run Wall Street. I think that's massive. And maybe some final food for thought for this Bukele and Donald Trump story that we've talked about a lot, but we haven't mentioned yet, is maybe it's a China thing. So El Salvador has welcomed a lot of investment from China over the years. China right now has essentially infiltrated South America. Every country in South America, you know, Paraguay, Colombia, Argentina, Peru, they all do more trade with China than they do with America. And historically, that's never been the case. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because China's on the other side of the world, okay? And China and America are kind of neck and neck economically. So you'd think that America would be doing most trade with people on the same continent as them, okay? You don't even need to be mucking around with big cargo ships to do imports and exports. You can just put things on a truck and send it across the border, okay? So it is strange that China is infiltrating South America and they're working their way up Central America as well. They're doing more and more trade with El Salvador. And most people know that Trump has been anti-China for a very long time. That was one of the policies he promised and he did deliver on in his 2016 to 2020 term. He put trade tariffs on China. So maybe that's the angle there, Brandon. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's all lining up, right? What is the reasoning behind here, right? I mean, Bukele has been very friendly to China. He's been almost like it can be looked at as almost an attack on the dollar to make Bitcoin legal tender. So why is El Salvador going against the US? It's because they've been underneath the thumb of the big guy this entire time. So what are they doing? Maybe they're making a deal with the devil, going in with China, going in kind of different direction. So Trump is maybe calling them out to try to reel them back in a little bit and get them back under with U.S. as like an ally and kind of work it in that direction. And yeah, I mean, the U.S. has always been an enemy of China and China, vice versa. Those powers are always going to be colliding here. So I think there's something deeper with that. And I subscribe to that theory there, Luke. I think that, there is definitely that aspect of things where Trump doesn't want to play nice with China. And if somebody else is playing nice with China, then that automatically makes them our enemy, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if that's maybe the issue here. And that's why Trump is calling out Bukele twice in 2 days, which you don't really see that often.
Yeah, I mean, who even talks about El Salvador? It's a tiny country of 6 million people in Central America. Why is Trump right now so hyper-focused with El Salvador and Bukele, the Bitcoin country, 3 days before he talks at the Bitcoin conference? That was obviously the conference that Bukele went to in 2021 and said, look, Bitcoin's legal tender. And, that is one of the biggest announcements we've ever had at the Bitcoin conference. So the timing's strange. The timing is interesting. Why now? Why El Salvador? Why twice in 2 days, 3 days before he talks at Bitcoin Nashville? I don't know. Something doesn't add up.
Yeah, there's something fishy here. So we'll have to stay tuned. I'll be tuned in and locked into his talk, and I know you will too. And I'll be locked into Max Kaiser's talk as well. So yeah, and if you guys are here in Nashville, be sure to find me and Luke. I think I've got my talk on Saturday, a little bit 2 hours before Trump's. Luke, I don't know what if you got a talk or anything like that, but I know you've got the unconference and other things going on here in Nashville. So if you guys are here, come and find us. Come and discuss this with us, and yeah, we'll be tuned in for more.
Yeah, come say good day. Love to catch up with you guys. I'm going to try to just drag Brandon along to the My First Bitcoin conference, which is the unconference, the day before the 3-day conference. I think that's on the 24th. So I'll be speaking at that one. I won't be speaking at the big gig like you, Brandon, but I'll be talking with the little boys down at the unconference. So yeah, come say good day. Come to both events. Should be a big week.
Awesome stuff. Yep. Come and find us. And yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in.
Adios.